Mr. Mayor, thanks for taking a moment to chat with us.
Absolutely, lovely to be back.
So we are a couple of weeks removed from the last big winter storm. We may, knock wood, be done with this miserable weather.
Find some wood around.
I know, yeah, like better actually do it. Reflecting back on the big storms, I think it's fair to say the biggest challenge your young administration has encountered. What could you have done better?
Well, I think first and foremost, I want to recognize what the incredible work that the men and women of DSNY did, which is show up, whether it was for the first storm that we'd seen at that scale in many years, or the first blizzard we'd seen in this city in a decade. And we were just celebrating with them the final 12-hour shift, because we have had around 7,000 DSNY workers working 12-hour shifts, which is how we were able to melt more than 700 million pounds of snow. And after the first storm, we asked ourselves, what are the things that worked well over the course of this response that we could start from the first day? One thing we found was emergency snow shovelers. We came in, we had maybe about 1,500 or 1,600 emergency snow shovelers signed up to a program. We did the extensive outreach to then bring that number up by about 6,000 additional shovelers. Them paired with the incredible DSNY workers meant that they could clear crosswalks, bus stops, the very kinds of places that New Yorkers have often seen as the last part of the response to finally bring it up to the first part.
What about deaths of New Yorkers out in the cold? And we learned this week there's some that occurred in homes, which we're now just finding out about. What changes need to be made there, especially as you look forward to next winter season?
We mourn the loss of each and every New Yorker, and we had 19 New Yorkers lose their lives outside. And we found from the preliminary investigations that about 15 of them lost their lives from hypothermia, 3 from drug overdose and alcohol-related deaths, and then 1 from a cardiac event. What we found over the course of that time period was that there are tools that we can utilize to try and keep more and more New Yorkers safe. For example, with the 3 New Yorkers who had overdose-related deaths, we then made the decision to keep our overdose prevention center open for 24 hours through the weekend. It's typically only Monday to Friday. We found so many New Yorkers responding to that new capacity. That's going to be a critical part of how we move forward. That's what we did for the response to this blizzard as well. The second is we always need to continue to invest in the kind of outreach that was chiefly responsible for us making 1,400 placements of homeless New Yorkers into safe havens and shelters, as well as the provision of warming buses, warming sites, warming centers. That need for an over and above, all of the above, frankly, outreach is what is at the core of how we must respond to this kind of weather.
And on a related note, it seems that this winter season evolved your position on encampments from before you took office, I'm ending encampment sweeps, to I'm going to do them differently and lead with outreach. What did you see during this winter weather that changed your approach, and how is it still evolving?
So I will push back a little bit on this, because what we made clear was that we found the prior administration's approach to be that of a failure. And we made that determination because of their inability to connect New Yorkers with the kind of housing that was supposedly the rationale for what they were doing. So on January 5th, we put a pause on their policy. And we spent the time from then developing our own policy. And one of the major things we found is that the prior administration had made the NYPD primarily responsible for the initiation of outreach and the relationship with homeless New Yorkers who were living in encampments. We made the decision, however, to have the Department of Homeless Services be responsible for the primary relationship with those homeless New Yorkers, and every single day of those 7 days to reach out to those homeless New Yorkers with a provision of service.
But did you not see intense outreach during the storm? I believe you said this during one of your press conferences was an example of what intense outreach could do, and that's why you wanted to move forward with still doing sweeps at the end of, I believe it was 7 days, correct?
We wanted intensive outreach to characterize any which way in which we engage with homeless New Yorkers. What we found is that in the previous time, oftentimes it was a citation on the first day and then nothing until the 7th day until there was a sweep. What we are now doing, in fact, is having Department of Homeless Services outreach workers engage with those homeless New Yorkers every single day. And what we saw is that the New Yorkers who lost their lives in the response to the Arctic conditions we had in New York City was actually unrelated to encampments. Encampments, however, is a question of infrastructure, and our response to that separate from the cold.
One more on the storm and then a fun one to end for us. So I don't think anyone's disputing the fact that these guys you were just meeting with deserve all the credit in the world and all the overtime that they earned. But between that, the volunteer shovelers, the tons and tons and tons of salt, did these winter storms make the budget deficit situation worse?
I think they come with them a significant cost. However, it will never be in question for us to utilize every tool we have to keep the city moving. And that's part and parcel of the kind of city government we're looking to deliver to New Yorkers. It's one where they never have to wake up the next morning and wonder, is there going to be a response to the first blizzard in 10 years? Are the schools going to be open? Are we going to be able to perform basic functions? The answer will always be yes. We have to support those who are doing the work to make that possible.
So you have to figure out the costs afterward.
Yes.
Finally, you had a winter jacket that went viral this winter season. It was from a speech of yours, and the quote on the back of it was, "No problem too big, no task too small." My question is this: were you aware that that was a nod to Paw Patrol? No job is too big, no pup is too small.
I was not aware. I think it is a happy coincidence.
What's your favorite pup on Paw Patrol?
I gotta be honest, have not watched Paw Patrol.
Fair enough.
It's probably gonna impact the ratings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Real pleasure.